So here we are, moving right into chapter 12. I do some of these recordings back to back, so I literally just finished 11 and now I'm doing 12. So you don't see them that way. So we talked about childhood, sexuality in our childhood. And now we're going to move on to adulthood, right? Because sexuality continues throughout our lifespan. And so now we're moving past the into our 20s, right? And what that looks like, early adulthood. Okay. And later life, but I think we're going to mostly focus on adulthood. So, what is the factors? Why do people stay single? What is cohabitation? These are the learning objectives, right? Why are people marrying later? What are the legal changes for same-sex marriage? Creating equality across the spectrum of the LGBTQ community, right? Uh, what it's like and what people think it should be like is for sexuality in later life, and how does that contribute to our well-being, right? And then again, this is the same situation as chapter 11. You're just going to answer these questions. Here's your possible answers. You use one each time, and just list your answers in the discussion assignment 1 through 10. Okay. And obviously, these answers are in the slides and in your reading, right? So they may not be in the slides, but they are in your reading. So you still have to do both. The slides are not going to like cover everything you need to know for the exams and quizzes and all that necessarily. Okay. So here we go. So these are our phases. This is how we see adulthood: the early 20s to mid 30s, like 20 to 35. Right. Adulthood, midlife adulthood, beginning in the 40s, late 40s now, right? Seniors are considered 65 and up, although I think at 65, not everybody wants to be considered a senior. And this one actually got me. There's elders at 85 and up now, right? Like there was a time nobody ever lived to be 85. Right. And, it wasn't all that long ago. 85 was a incredible milestone. Excuse me. So, early adulthood, what's happening when you're 20? You may be in college, you may not be, you may be still pursuing school, but at the same time pursuing a career. You might be working your way through college or wherever you are, right? At some point, you're developing more independence. You're ready to move out of your parents' house, maybe, right? All these things are going on. You are developing a circle of friends and partners. You're expanding what maybe you might consider as your family unit, right? You're becoming friends. There's friends that are going to become just like the cultural thing we talked about, right? Our relationships are like an onion too, with depths of closeness versus acquaintances and such, right? Um, so at one point, you would be married by the time you were 20. There was a time when you would all be married by the time you were 20, right? And here you go, in 1950, right? Women were married like right there. And now that age has gone up to like almost 30, over 25. And for men, that age has been even higher. And I don't know if it's traditional, but it just seems like typically in relationships, the men are older than the women. But not always, right? Nothing is always. But typically, the men are older than the women, right? Today, singles outnumber married people in the USA, and those are 20 and above, and that's kind of new. That's a new, like, just to accept that people are never going to marry is a relatively new concept. And then uh, remaining celibate and single by choice, right? Like, not because nobody wants me. The percentage of people living alone, right? Um, in 1850, nobody lived alone. Everybody stayed pre-industrial age, right? When we were in agricultural in the United States, we were still very much an agricultural place. People stayed home, right? People lived at home. The children stayed. If I had a farm, I built another little house, and my children got married, and they raised their kids on the same piece of property, etc. Uh, and of course, all of that has been on the rise. This is up to 2010. And then this is even by age group. This is just males and females. Right? And females have higher percentage of those staying close to home. And this is actually by age group, right? And this is 65 and older people that are choosing to live alone. Sometimes due to unfortunate circumstances, right? Their partner has passed, so things that their children have all moved on, right? There are other options. There are people at 65 and older that have roommates. They live in a community. They may live in a separate unit, but then they live in a 50 community that gives them the social support and the societal support that goes along with that. And so technically they live alone, but they are in a group setting. This is single person households and I hope you can see this better on your computer than mine. Single person households, and in the United States, we're like pretty much in the middle here. But we rank lower than many Western countries in the percentage of singles. Right? So all of these are the developed countries: Canada, Italy, Sweden, Germany, the Netherlands, France. Right? And these countries you may view as having a more family unit anyway. Right? Like some of these cultures are more family oriented. And so people don't live alone. They'll stay with their family if they're not in a couple cohabitating situation. Another questions, right? So casual sex. I'm having sex with somebody and it has no attachment. I have no emotional attachments, right? I have no commitment to this person. Hooking up is the familiar term now. Or was. I don't know what it is today. Right, here's all those different types of casual sex. You can figure out that. The practice of having monogamy, right? I have an exclusive relationship with one person for at a time. That's me. I'm just like, I don't have multiple partners at the same time. I may experience multiple partners, but when I'm with one person, I'm with that person until that relationship ends and I move on. Right? And then I have like what's called friends with benefits, where I might have more than one relationship at a time. So polyamory is a new concept, right? There's a lot of non-monogamous relationships, which is fairly new concept. And when I say new, I mean the last 75 years. I don't mean, this week, right? I don't mean 20 years. I mean, the change in our sexual perspectives from 1950 to today probably has more change in it than everything up until that period of time in history. So, Right. So everything is about love and industry, truth and honesty. I'm totally honest. I am open to everybody. If I have multiple relationships, everybody knows about it and is aware about it. And if they're not okay with that, they can move on, kind of thing. Right. Cohabitation. I live with my partner. I'm not legally married, but I live with my partner. Uh, and that arrangement can go to many different levels and what that means, what cohabitation means. Right? Another question, and here's what we're talking about. I can live with somebody and start combining our households, right? So I may combine our bank accounts. We may act totally as a married couple, except we don't have a piece of paper. Or I can live with somebody, and there's married couples that live like this. I have my money, that person has their money. We share the bills on a certain level. Um, we may have separate social lives. So there's all different levels to this cohabitation and what those arrangements are. You're going to read about that. Um, Levels of commitment, right? And so, I think for most people, the cohabitation, for many people, cohabitation is the prelude to marriage, but not necessarily. Here's the thing of living apart together, to be a couple, but then to never combine our households. Um, the common law marriage, every state pretty much has a thing about if I live together for so long, the state now considers us married. And domestic partnership is a new thing that came about, particularly for non traditional gender couples. That they may benefit from, my partner may benefit from my health benefits at work, um, and there's some different things like that. Legal stuff, a lot of legal stuff. Questions? Some more terms about how what a couples can be legally, right? Um, Early cohabitation. We're going to talk. You're going to read all about this. Uh, how marriage contributes to sexual well-being, right? And for some people, it's true, and obviously for some other people, it's not. But in the long run, research shows us that married people tend to live longer. Men, particularly, live longer than they're married. I don't know what that is, but there's a lot of research that supports marriage as a emotional and mentally healthy thing. Uh, Another question: how do we make sure that our marriage and sexual well-being are working, right? Like, how do we make that happen? And of course, that has a lot to do with our how we choose the partners, how we got to be married, right? Because not everybody gets to marriage through the same thing. So there's a lot of stuff going on there. So here's dual income, no sex. I work so much that we don't even have intimacy. Probably not a healthy thing, right? I don't see this as healthy. But it could very well be I'm an asexual type person. I don't really have an interest. My interest in sex is minimal at best. And so I meet somebody just like me. And so that's not our focus. It's not a big part of our lives if it's a part of our lives at all. So there's nothing wrong with this. There's not. It's just. It's a unique situation, I think, or So, and then I spend my time like I work. My job has me traveling, and I'm on the road 300 days. Or we don't work 300 days typically, but I'm on the road 150 days a year. And my partner is the same way, and those schedules may or may not combine, right? So, a number of reasons for this. right? Though it seems unusual. And here's all the things, like I said, the attitudes towards marriage is changing very much, right? Although here we still have 82% of the people still expect to be married for life, even though, despite the divorce rates, right? Here's a good, right? 75% of the people would rather be single than marry the wrong person. I have to make a relationship last forever can be a grueling place. Some people, 56% of people think it's important to cohabitate before marriage, which, like I said, you can learn a lot about it. Whether having a relationship and then combining households, you learn a lot about people. You thought you knew them, but anyway, another question. All the variations and cultural aspects of marriage, religion, like all the different variations of marriage. And I'm going to read this to you. Um, uh, all the interactions of sex and how marriage and sex go together. Right? And then, unfortunately, some extramarital affairs are sanctioned, I guess, so you want to say, right? Like me and my partner decide that we're going to have an open relationship and we're going to have sex with other people, and that's okay. Versus adultery, where I am considered cheating on somebody and they don't know I'm having a sexual relationships with other people. Different levels, right? Unfortunately, divorce uh, is a huge piece, right? Right. You say 40% of all marriages in the U.S. end in divorce, and for a number of reasons. I'm not going to get into. You can read all about that. Uh, this is funny. Second marriages in the United States are more likely to fail than first marriages. So if you've been divorced once, your chances are you're going to get divorced again. So So this is when a marriage is successful, individuals who remarry are actually more satisfied and happier. And so typically, if a marriage ended successful, unfortunately, it usually means one of the parties has crossed over. Um, Same-sex marriage equality, right? So now I'm in a same-sex marriage and I have the same rights and I have the equal protections, theoretically, of traditional married couples, right? How our attitudes have changed towards same sex. Keep going. Our at midlife in our 40s and 50s. Where are we sexually? Right. So right. So many of you probably thinking now that people at 65 having sex is probably not something you want to think about. But when you're 65, you'll want to think about it. So, and we, of course, there is discrimination against older people. I think I'm guessing that's not something new to you. Right. So all of these the same things, and of course the LGBTQIA plus or community face different challenges as always. Right? And then you start thinking, I'm not at 85 yet. I don't think about it, but yeah, I don't know. I'll be curious as to how my sex life changes between now and then if I live that long. But there are more and more studies about how all that works. And then there's your last question, and here's your food for thought for chapter 12. What do you think about being married? And do you think that's going to have something you want, or do you want to be single? Or do you just want to have a partner? Do you need the legal piece of that? And then if you're going to have an active sex life, what do you do now to take care of yourself. Make sure that happens. All right. So that's chapter 12. And we'll be moving on to chapter 13. I don't know what I'm going to do about the discussion piece with chapter for the rest of the chapters, but stay tuned to find